Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors lose again. This time a 111-105 defeat to the Indiana Pacers at Chase Center on Monday night. Just an incredibly frustrating loss. Like, there's just no need for the Warriors to lose that game. Like, if you're just a good, solid basketball team, you just win that game. I don't think Indiana played, at their best necessarily. And again, the same issues for the Warriors. Their free throw shooting and their fourth quarter offense have been issues and have plagued them throughout the entire season. And once again, that proved the case in this game. The Warriors gave themselves a big opportunity. Jonathan Kuminga hit a three with, I think, about 7:19 to go in the fourth quarter to put them up 95-93. And from that point, the Warriors scored a total of 10 points for the remainder, and they missed 4 free throws down the stretch, 3 from Kuminga and 1 from Draymond. And, yeah, they're just pretty average right now. They're pretty average, and Indiana, a good, solid team who are capable of beating you. But, again, I don't think they were electric by any means. They were for a period maybe in the second quarter and earlier in the game. But, yeah, the Warriors just needed to win that game. And it's just frustrating that they have a defeat like that where they just had the opportunity, and once again, a clutch situation. Their offense just cannot come to the fore, and Steph Curry was a big part of that, and his struggles, obviously going back to the 2-point performance against the Grizzlies last week, and then obviously had that bounce back against the Timberwolves 31-10. But if you are a superstar in this league, then you shouldn't be having 10-point performances. And this is now a 2-point and 10-point performance as part of Steph's last 3 games. It's just not good enough. It's not good enough. This team isn't good enough to withstand Steph Curry having these rather mediocre performances, 2 of 13 shooting from the floor, 2 of 9 from three-point range. I mean, it's hard to win games when Steph Curry does that. Like, this team is built around one superstar player, and if that one superstar isn't going to step up and deliver, then the chances of winning are not great. Anema King says, Steph is to blame for the loss and Steve Kerr like usual. Let me know about what you didn't like from Steve. There were a couple of things that I didn't like, but let me know what you think. Fendex says, this is on Steph. Yeah, he just got outplayed by Andrew Nembhard. Like, Andrew Nembhard really played him hard, but this is the thing, like, you look at this game, you go back to Thursday's loss against the Grizzlies and where he was locked down by Jalen Wells, and we're getting to a point where some not random players like Andrew Nembhard's a very good player, but Jalen Wells is a rookie, and some little known players are like locking down Steph Curry, and I'm a bit concerned by that. Like, you would have liked to think, okay, if he's getting locked down and he's really struggling, it's coming up against a Drew Holiday or one of the other elite perimeter defenders in the NBA, and instead it's like Jalen Wells and Andrew Nembhard. It's a little bit concerning. Again, I'm not going to overreact too much because, as I said, after the win over the Timberwolves on Saturday, I said, Steph Curry's still capable of all-worldly performances, of leading the Warriors to victories against good teams. My only issue and my perhaps bigger concern is there too much of a gap now between his best and his worst? Because he's had some absolute stinkers this season where, Steph Curry in years past, like, when do you see him have 2-point games or 10-point games or whatever it is? So part of it has got to do with the roster as well. And again, the amount of pressure and load on him, but still he's got to step up and deliver at a far greater level than what he currently is. Then says Steph should stop playing hero ball, like give the ball to the guy with the hot hands. If this continues, teams will continue locking up Steph like this. I don't want the Warriors to ruin my Christmas. It's a bit disappointing. This was obviously the last game before the big Christmas Day battle against the Los Angeles Lakers, who let me just double check. Did they just lose to the Pistons? I'm assuming they did. Surely they did. They went down 117-114. So the Lakers will also be coming off a disappointing loss, and they'll visit Chase Center, and the Warriors now 15-13. Again, not a must-win game, but a very, very important one at this point of their season, and Steph needs a bounce back. There's no doubt about that. Yes, Stendex says Lakers lost. Let's talk about positives for a second. Kuminga. He's such a bizarre player. He's so bizarre because you've got all this speculation about his future at the moment, as there has been for across the course of this season, but going before that, going back to last season, year before, there's just always speculation about his future. It's kind of crazy, as much speculation as there's been, that the fact that he's actually still on this team is kind of wild. But a performance like this, where he was really a lone hand offensively, it must be said, like he goes for, was it 26 points in the end, I think it was, which is a game high. Yeah, 26 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 9 of 16 shooting from the floor, 2 of 3 from three-point range. Did miss 3 free throws down the stretch, which is disappointing, but you certainly can't put this loss on him from a blame standpoint, because he's clearly Golden State's best player. And this is the thing. Like, it's such an oddity, such a weird career arc at the moment for Kuminga, where there is so much up and down. It's just silly. You had the stuff about Steve coming out after the Timberwolves game and talking about, the need for greater patience and passing and not taking those contested mid-range jump shots, which he was clearly directly talking to JK there without actually mentioning his name in the post-game press conference. JK kind of arose more speculation yesterday when he put up an Instagram post with a few photos, and then had the peace sign, and had a song, which remind me what the song was called. I can't remember, but basically hinted that, his future at the Warriors is probably fairly limited. And then again, he comes out and has a performance like this, where it's just so weird, because he has performances like this and you think, oh, he's about to take off, and then he just doesn't, and it just kind of peters out again. And then once you think it's done and dusted, like I thought after not starting on Saturday, and the fact that Steve went to Kyle Anderson over him, I was just like, okay, I'm out. Like, this has got to be the end of it. Like, JK has to be off this team by the February 6th deadline, and I probably still think that might happen. If I had to put a percentage on it, maybe it's 50-50. Like, honestly, maybe it's 60-40 that I think he'll be traded. Maybe it's more likely than not. But he has a performance like this where he just reels me back in. And it's like, I was totally out. I was like, okay, they're just not going to utilize him enough. Just get rid of him. And now this game, he takes 16 shots, efficient, 26 points, really, really aggressive, but also nice and patient. And I think Steve would have been very happy with that performance. Very little in the way of mid-range jump shots. It was either getting to the rim or, went 2 of 3 from three-point range, got to the free throw line. Just a really in-control performance. His stint in the first half was spectacularly good. I think he got blocked by Miles Turner at the rim one time, but aside from that, it was excellent. And I don't know, it's just frustrating. It's just super frustrating. This guy can play at that level and be so good, and yet the Warriors and Steve Kerr don't really give him the rope to be able to play through mistakes and errors. And we had the starting stint for a few games, and then Draymond's back in the starting lineup. And I don't know, trying to predict where Jonathan Kuminga's career is going to go is legitimately impossible. He's like one of the biggest enigmas in the NBA. And that's why I think if the Warriors do put him in trade discussions, like, there's got to be teams around the league that are still tantalized by his potential and the thought of that, and the idea of this guy who is capable of performances such as this, where he's scoring 25 plus points efficiently. Thought his defense was better today. He's rebounding on the glass. Like, he was really crashing the O boards and using his size and physicality in a way that's so much more than just necessarily scoring the ball. So a really good all-around game. Again, 4 assists. I thought his patience on offense. Again, I was a bit concerned after Steve's comments about JK coming out and just being a little bit lackadaisical, and not being his aggressive self. And we know that JK is at his best when he's being aggressive. And I was a little bit concerned that wouldn't be the case after Steve's comments, and that he'd just kind of hide himself a little bit and, give up the ball more on offense, because Steve's obviously concerned about some of his shot selection rather than passing the ball. But again, that first stint was excellent in playing under control and playing aggressively, but remaining patient, getting the right shots, making the right reads and passes when need be. So Kuminga, clearly the biggest positive from this game. but it only creates more confusion about where he's going in his career and where he's going, particularly at the Warriors, and what this means moving forward. Like, I don't know what this means. Is it a showcase of his game and therefore his trade value goes up and that's a good thing? Maybe. But I still want this to work. I just don't think I'm have no idea if it will or not. And I think the data that we've now gathered over 3 seasons and nearly a third of a fourth season would suggest that him being a long-term piece of the Warriors is still very much under question. And again, I think it's probably pretty 50-50 whether he's on this team beyond the deadline. Thandek says, do you remember that prediction when you said 5-2 and I said 6-1? Clearly not happening. Yeah, it's disappointing. And I probably the win the other day against the Timberwolves, going back a few weeks, I would have said that's probably a loss. So the one win they did get was a surprising one based on where Minnesota have been previously. But this is just like, it's, as I said at the start, it's just frustrating. Like a frustrating loss to lose to an Indiana team who are good, made the Eastern Conference Finals last season, but they're not unbeatable. Especially their defense isn't great, and the fact that you put up 105 points against a pretty average defense. I don't know, Steph's just got to be better. Steph's got to be better. No one had it going, really, aside from Kuminga. Like, Wiggins got to 16 points, but he was 7 of 16 from the floor. He was 1 of 7 from 3. I think he missed 6 straight threes because he made his first one in the first quarter out of the corner. Missed 6 straight after that. A lot of them I thought were relatively open. Has 4 rebounds, 3 assists, but he's a minus 15 in the game. Draymond, just not enough impact, like made some defensive plays, but otherwise 4.7 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, a block. He was okay, but he played 26 minutes. He came out early in the third quarter, subbed out for Kuminga, but basically 2 minutes into the third quarter, and you thought that might be him done for the night with that ankle issue that he came into the game with. He returns and plays out the game and closes the game, but just wasn't quite himself. TJD, I'm surprised he didn't play more. He played 23 minutes. I thought he was really, once again, aggressive and impactful. 13 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. So I thought he was good. Surprised he didn't play more, but then you look at the plus minus, he's a minus 17. Maybe that's a bit of a concern. And clearly, the Warriors don't want to be playing Kuminga, Draymond, and TJD together, and Kuminga had to close, so it had to be a Kuminga, Draymond 4-5. I thought TJD was good though. I know the plus minus doesn't suggest so, but I thought he ran the floor well, played really hard on both ends of the floor. Had that finish, that and one finish in the third quarter, which was shocking because this guy shoots 40% on layups for the season, and then he's making this one-off glass with all this English, and it was just a really awkward shot that he had to take and ended up making it, and the and one there, which was kind of crazy. There was a circus shot. The Warriors made a few circus shots, but then obviously missed quite a few shots that probably like back and makers that usually make as well, particularly Steph going 2 of 9 from 3. So, yeah, what else from this game? Just not a whole lot to be really too positive about aside from Kuminga. Dendek said Moody hasn't played well. I want to kind of try and give some leeway because he's obviously coming off a 4-game absence. And then the 2 games previous to that, he only played like 5 or 6 minutes. So he just hasn't played really for 6 games. I think he made his first 3 as well and then missed his last 3 points. He was a plus 16. Again, that the plus minus doesn't really tell you a whole lot about that because I didn't think he played overly well. But yeah, I want to give some leeway. Hopefully he can remain a part of the rotation. If he plays better in those 10 minutes, he's probably going to get more minutes than that. Pod's playing 26 is probably a bit much. Has 5.6 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals. My issue with Pod's, he can't get by guys. Like, he had that nice play in the fourth where he did actually break the paint and kicked out, and Kuminga hit a corner 3. But aside from that, he just can't beat guys off the dribble. And then he can't really stay in front of guys on defense either. Like, there was a play, I think, in the third quarter where Nembhard just went by him in transition like he was literally standing still or wasn't even there. And he does take charges, and he took another one on Siakam, big one in the fourth quarter. But I think he takes so many charges because he knows, like, if he just tries to play guys straight up, they will beat him off the dribble. And so he has to try and guess right. And oftentimes he does guess right, but the fact he takes, I think, so many charges is because he knows that he's going to get beaten off the dribble. So his perimeter defense and also just his own offense being able to get by guys, I think is the biggest thing from holding him back, because as a scorer, it makes him very, very limited if he can't beat guys off the dribble. Like, it makes him very limited. He's going to have to rely on being a very good spot up shooter, which his three ball is coming around. Like, he was 1 of 1 in this game. You'd like him to be taking more than that in 26 minutes. Go back to the offseason where he said he wanted to take 8 to 10 threes per game. So, yeah, ideally you don't want him playing over 26 minutes. But that was the kind of game that I suppose Steve thought it asked for that. A few more comments from you guys. Berserk Monk says, we've seen this movie too many times. Overuse of motion offense early in the game. Steph doesn't build a rhythm early enough and can't bail us out in the fourth because of it. I have spoken about that previously earlier in the season, where it is a big ask to get anyone. Yes, I know Steph is one of the arguably top 10 players of all time, but it is a huge ask of anyone to be pretty quiet and cold for the first 3 quarters and then just assume that they can flick a switch and turn it on in the fourth and win the game for you. So I think that is a fair comment. FTW Clan says Kyle DNP again. Yes, did not play after starting. Like, this is just the bizarre nature of these Steve Kerr rotations. Like, Kyle Anderson started against the Timberwolves on Saturday and then he's out of the rotation again. I don't think he should have been. I think he should have been in the rotation. Looney plays only 9 minutes. They did go to a lot of Draymond. Well, I suppose they went to a lot of Draymond at center because they only had TJD play 23. Looney played 9. So that's basically 32 minutes of center play. And then I suppose Draymond's 16 of his 26 minutes came as a small ball 5, which I'm not sure that hurt them necessarily, but I do want to say, and I'm sorry to harp on it continually, but the Warriors' need for a stretch 5 is a big one. And just look at what Miles Turner delivered for the Pacers in this game. He had a team high. What did he have? 23 points for them, 10 rebounds, 3 block shots, 9 of 14 from the floor, 3 of 7 from three-point range. Just, if you put him on the Warriors, what does it look like? It looks entirely different, I'll tell you that much. Like, early in the game, again, Trace played well, but how many threes did Draymond take in, like, the first quarter? I think he took 3 threes in the first quarter, and you're just like, we don't, like, defenses will live with that. We don't want that. And ideally, you'd have another guy out there spacing the floor, and Miles Turner was huge for Indiana. Obviously came up with that big 3 in the final 15 seconds or so as the Warriors were looking for a stop, which would have then given them the opportunity to either tie or win the game on the following offensive possession. Turner hits that huge 3. I don't know. I would love him on the Warriors. Love him on the Warriors, particularly with how the Warrior roster is set up. Berserk Monk says, still playing Draymond at the 5, way too much, 3-guard lineups, and our SF is PF. Yeah, a lot of minutes with Wiggins at the 4. Obviously, Kuminga played a fair bit. The one rotation decision I really questioned was, with 3:50 to go in the game, Steve just pulled Schroeder and Wiggins out for Pajemski and who came back? It was Pods and just checking here. 3:50, yeah. So Wiggins and Schroeder sub out for Draymond and Pods. So obviously Draymond's got to come back, but I just thought that was a really odd time to have those two guys ended up closing the games. They came back in with 2.5 minutes left. So they had a minute 20 break. Why did you need to do that? For what reason? I don't know. It just didn't make any sense to me. So they ended up, the Pacers outscored the Warriors in that stretch. In that minute 20, they outscored the Warriors 6-2. Right. And so I'm not saying it's a difference in the game, but that just felt like a weird time. There's under 4 minutes to go. Why do those guys need a break? Just play them out, you would have thought. The Schroeder stuff hasn't been great. Again, I want to reserve judgment a little bit more for 10 to 12 games through the season, but he's 3 of 9, 1 of 3 from downtown, 9 points, 3 assists, 5 fouls, minus 22, which was a game worst. So it hasn't been great for Schroeder. Like, he hasn't even had a game he's got to 10 points yet. Again, I'd like to reserve some judgment, but it'd want to get a bit better pretty soon. And in a game like this where Steph's really struggling, you would have liked Schroeder to maybe go for 15, 20 points and be that other option offensively to try and complement JK and get the Warriors obviously to a position where they could have won that game, but ultimately that wasn't the case. Buddy Hield had the weirdest game ever because his first half was excellent and Buddy was on a heater, and I was like, okay, this is cool. We had 11 first half points, played very well, and then the second half was a complete unmitigated disaster. Some of his stuff in the second half was just like, why is this guy out on the floor? He's a huge negative. It was a huge negative in that second half. Turnovers. Whenever Buddy Hield starts dribbling the ball, I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? There's no reason Buddy Hield should be handling the ball in any situation unless there's a real major fast break opportunity. Then maybe, but even then, it's like it's not great. I just do not want Buddy Hield handling the ball. Like he's got to be. It's like Clay last season. Like you do not want those guys over dribbling. You want them to be spot up, catch and shoot guys. And Buddy Hield's, his second half was horrific, absolutely horrific. I'm surprised he played as much in the fourth as he did. He did have, like, if you look at his game, 13 points, 4 rebounds, 5-11, 3 of 6, you think, yeah, that's okay. But that was all basically in the first half, and his second half was just horrifically bad. So, yeah, I mean, that's the disappointing thing is Kuminga played way above his level, and then everyone else was poor. Like, Wiggins, underwhelming. Draymond, underwhelming. Trace was good. Okay, I'll give Trace that. Schroeder, underwhelming. Steph, underwhelming. Buddy Hield's second half was a disaster. Looney didn't play much, only played 9 minutes. Pods, pretty underwhelming. And then Moody, pretty underwhelming. And so you've got that many non-contributors or that many guys playing below their average level. It's going to be a struggle to win that game. And you just need one or two of those guys. You just need Steph to hit a few more shots or Schroeder to step up a little bit more, maybe Wiggs to make a couple open threes, and you win that game. And that's the frustrating thing is, like, I don't think Indiana played that well. And yet they come into Chase Center on the second night of a back-to-back, mind you, after beating the Kings yesterday, and they win that game. Like, it's just frustrating. Berserk Monk, a few comments here. Says Schroeder isn't looking like Schroeder because he's best utilized as a PG. He should be backing up Steph, not playing next to him at SG. Yeah, I think there's an aspect of that. Like, he's clearly not a spot up guy. I don't know. Again, I'm going to reserve judgment a little bit here and hope that it improves. But I think, yes, you're probably right. In an ideal world, it goes back to, I still think the Warriors' best option here might be trade. Like, if Miles Turner became available, Miles Turner would be fantastic. You'd probably have to give up Kuminga to make it happen. You could get Vucevic without giving up Kuminga, and then just go back, see if you can do the Steph Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond, Vucevic starting lineup like you did at the start of the season, except we obviously had Trace in that position instead of Vucevic. Like, could you just try that again? And then have Schroeder as your designated legit six-man, and then the other guys around that, like, you'd probably still have Buddy, you'd probably still have Pods, maybe Moody's still around, although my kind of trade suggestion has him going to the Pistons in a 3-team trade with Vucevic coming to the Warriors. Looney might be involved in, like, you still have TJD as a backup big. Looney, whether he's involved in the trade or not, you could either trade one of him or Anderson. The issue right now is, like, and this is why the Warriors need to make a move. So they should have won this game. And you had Looney playing 9 minutes. You had Kyle Anderson at DNP. You had Gary Payton the second out. He was out injured. And you had Moody playing 10 minutes. And you had Buddy Hield playing 16 minutes and having a disastrous second half. I know none of those guys are on huge contracts, but it's like Buddy Hield's making like $8 million. Looney's making $8 million. GP2 is making $9 million. Kyle Anderson's making $8.8 million or something. Moody's about to start a 3-year, $37 million extension. Like, all these guys are actually making salaries around that 8 to 10 million mark, where you could combine like 2 or 3 of those and just upgrade, just make a significant upgrade. Because none of those guys to me are screaming out, oh, we just desperately need to keep like those guys. They're not screaming out huge parts of the team, huge parts of the rotation where you desperately need those guys. And so that's just another reason why a consolidation trade of some kind needs to be made. And I'm not saying it has to be Jimmy Butler or a guy making over 40 plus million, because obviously when you get to that scenario, you're talking about adding Wiggins in the equation as well, and maybe Kuminga. But a guy like Vucevic making 20 million, maybe it's Cam Johnson at 23. that's the kind of salary price point where it's like, okay, let's get three, maybe even four of these guys in the deal to try and actually get an upgrade and shorten the rotation a little bit. Thandex says we have a terrible home record, clearly playing like last season. Berserk Monk says Buddy tends to dribble the ball during motion offense plays when Steph is on ball with PNR actions. Buddy's able to stand there and get ready to catch and shoot. Then next says trade Moody and Pods for Vucevic. Would have to be another salary involved in that. And Moody with the poison pill contract just makes things difficult. Berserk Monk says, I was watching some of the Bulls versus Bucks game today. Bucks without Giannis and Damon. Man, Middleton was picking on Vooch over and over. Vooch cannot defend any type of screening action. Yeah, like I have spoken about it a lot, about his defensive concerns, obviously. But at least, like, if you trade, like, you'd still have Trace Jackson Davis. You'd still have possibly Looney. You could keep Looney in that scenario. You would still have Draymond as your small ball option, and that may be your best lineup to close games. But at least it would give you some kind of offensive presence where the Warriors at the moment, it's just really difficult to have Draymond Green as your power forward and then a non-spacing, not even a non-spacing center, but like a legit non-offensive threat as a center. Like TJD's been a little bit better here, attacking the rim a little bit better. Finishing has been a little bit better, so I'll give him that. He's had 28 points in the last two games, so that's not bad, but it's still pretty difficult just having a look at this Bucks Bulls game. Bucks are on a bit of a roll at the moment. Middleton goes for 21, Lopez 21, Ryan Rollins, our man, 22 minutes off the bench, 8 points, 5 rebounds, an assist and 2 steals. How good, Ryan Rollins. Levine had 14. Vucevic had 17, 12, and 3. 1 steal. He was a minus 15, although everyone was pretty bad for the Bulls because they lost by 21. But again, like Vucevic going for 17 and 12 and 3 assists. Now he goes 7 of 16, 2 of 8. That's not great, but that's just like a standard game for him. And so just getting that kind of offensive production. Like how many players do the Warriors currently have on this team that can just give you 17 points? Like they just don't have that many. Like it's Steph and it's Kuminga and it's Wiggins and it's probably, hopefully, going to be Schroeder, but we haven't seen it yet. Like he hasn't even had a game. He's played 3 games now. He hasn't even had one with 10 points. And so that's the thing. Like you just need, can we just get a guy that can put the ball in the basket and just score you 15 to 20 points every game, please? FTW Clan says, yeah, losing all these home games against teams in back-to-backs is just embarrassing. Corneless says, I think Waters can shoot better than Buddy, play better defense. Let him get Buddy minutes. Well, I would go a step further than that. Like, if you just traded Buddy Hield, like if he was actually part of a trade, could you just give those minutes, like, up to Lindy Waters, as you say? And all of a sudden, instead of having a guy in that spot that's making $8.8 million and on a 4-year contract, then could you just have a guy who's making $2 million in that spot? And it's kind of money ball there and you're getting better value. Maybe that's the case. I don't think Waters is I think Buddy Hield's a better shooter than Lindy Waters, a more dangerous one, but there's certainly spots like it's just really difficult with Buddy because sometimes he can, like when he's hitting shots, he can kind of be like an offensive star almost, like obviously not with the ball in his hands, but you can push your offense like through him quite a lot. We saw at the start of the season how many shot attempts he was actually getting up in such a small sample size. And if he's hitting shots, he's very dynamic. But if he's not, then he's just like a complete negative because the defense isn't there. And he sometimes forces things to a point where it's just not good for your offense whatsoever. So Douglas Mike says, I see Vooch turning into a pumpkin as soon as he's traded to the Warriors. Possible. Yeah, it's possible. It's a bit of a concern. Like he's actually had a great start to the season. You would think his numbers would probably plateau out into something more normal, I suppose, because he's been shooting like 60% from the floor and nearly 50% from 3. So that's certainly possible, and you wouldn't want that to necessarily come at the Warriors. It's almost like Schroeder right now. Schroeder was over like 18.5 points a game, 6.5 assists at the Nets on 38.7% three-point shooting. And he's come to the Warriors. Now, I didn't expect his numbers to stay at that level. I did expect to see, a decline of such just with the more limited opportunity with the ball in his hands and stuff. But I still expect him to come to the Warriors and be like a 14-point per game scorer and like 5 assists. And instead, he's had 3 games now and hasn't even got to double digits in any of those games. So it's disappointing. Again, hopefully, there's an improve there and there's an acclimatization factor, which will eventually roll around. He'll probably be motivated coming up against the Lakers, his former team, on Christmas Day. So looking forward to that one. FTW Clan says, I think it's hard for certain role players to come in and fit next to Steph in the Warriors system. Very true. It's probably a reason why you argue that they need to change a little bit more and do something a little bit different, particularly if Steph's not going to play at the level he was once at, which is still a debate and a question mark, I suppose, on whether Steph is in some kind of decline or whether, again, I don't think he's in decline as such from what his very best can be. Like, I still think he's capable of producing very, very elite level performances that, are befitting of a top 5 to 10 player in the NBA. It's just the gap between his best and his worst is kind of opening up a little bit concerningly. I'm going to probably finish it up there. Been going for half an hour. It's just frustrating. Again, there's not too many positives outside of Kuminga. The defense in the second half was better, I suppose. But yeah, just disappointing. Thenex says Steph never plays well in December, to be fair. He doesn't usually play well on Christmas, so it's going to be interesting to see how he goes against the Lakers on Christmas Day. Talking of Christmas Day, we are just over 6 hours from it, my time here in Australia. It's currently 5:30 p.m. on the 24th on Christmas Eve. So 6.5 hours until Christmas. Hope everyone has a good Christmas. Obviously, it's a little while longer for those of you in America. I don't have too much planned necessarily, but I will take the day off. And I'm going to take a couple of days off here. Obviously, the Warriors playing the Lakers on Christmas Day, but it'll be Boxing Day for me. I will certainly be writing about the game, but I won't be doing a post-game live because I'd imagine you guys have probably got more important things to do on Christmas than watching me or listening to me talking about basketball. So I'll take that off. Then the Warriors play the Clippers, I think, on the 27th. So I'll certainly do a post-game live after that. But otherwise, I might just take a few days off here to kind of reset. Hopefully the Warriors get another victory on Christmas Day against the Lakers. It's going to be a huge matchup, particularly after the Lakers just lost to the Pistons and with how congested the Western Conference standings are right now. As I keep saying, a couple of losses here or a couple of wins there, like it can just drastically change where your standing is. Cornelis says, I love your show. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you too. Merry Christmas to all of you that have either tuned in or you're watching on replay or you're listening via the podcast feed. Thank you very much for your ongoing support. Have a very safe holiday period with whatever you're getting up to. And I'll finish it up there. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POK252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. You can follow us Golden State with Mates on Instagram and TikTok as well. As I said before, I'll take a few days off here, but I'll certainly be back for a post-game live after the Clippers game on the 27th where Kawhi Leonard may return. Other than that, you can still continue to find my writing over on bluemanhoop.com over the next few days. Thanks, guys.